I'd like to call the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting for the City of Leesburg to order. It is April 20th, 2023, 4:30. Please stand for the invocation and pledge the flag.
Be with us today, Lord, as we deal with the business of the City of Leesburg. Let the decisions we make today be pleasing in your sight. Pray this in our most holy name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, thank you. All right, everybody's had an opportunity to review the minutes. Are there any additions, corrections, or deletions?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we accept the minutes as submitted.
I second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Raise your right hand. Aye. All opposed? Thank you very much. Would you swear everybody in? Speakers.
Do you swear affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? I do. And
I apologize. I didn't really announce that well. Anybody that's wishing to speak today, please stand and be sworn in. I apologize. I was half asleep.
wake up. The testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Thank you. That'll happen from time to time.
It's easy.
Dan, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to welcome everyone to the April 20, 2023 City of Leesburg Planning Commission meeting. My name is Dan Miller, Planning and Zoning Director for the City of Leesburg. Staff present today includes Sabrina Mitchell, our Administrative Assistant to my left, Senior Planners Candy Harper, Christine Rock, and Diane Yeckel, and then Planners Max Van Allen and Melissa Metters. Today's meeting agenda is available on the table by the exit door. If you wish to speak on a case, we ask that you please sign the speaker's registry and turn it in to Ms. Mitchell, who again is sitting here on my left. At this time, I'd like to ask everyone, please take a moment to turn off your cell phones. Either turn them off or on silent mode, please, as we read the rules of participation, and I remember to do that myself. The meeting is conducted under the following process. The chairman will announce the case. The staff will read exhibits, including maps, photos, and text, into the record and present this information on the two screens. Staff will then read a recommendation into the record, and the applicant will have an opportunity to speak about the request. The chairman will allow time for public comments, and the applicant will have an opportunity for rebuttal. The chairman will close the case to the public. The commission will discuss the case. A vote is taken, and the commission will move to the next case. The Planning Commission is a citizen-appointed board, or commission, I should say, and it is appointed by the City Commission. They are charged with two major responsibilities. One is to make final decisions on cases such as variances and conditional uses. There's one conditional use on the agenda today. The other is to make recommendations for issues that will be heard by the City Commission. Today on the Planning Commission, there will be recommendations made on the first four cases on the agenda. The final case is a conditional use permit, and it is a final decision by this commission. And again, recommendations by this commission are forwarded to the City Commission for the final decision. Please note that there are tentative dates for the hearings for cases which will go to City Commission. They're listed on the agenda, and that these dates are subject to be changed to earlier or later dates. So please check with our office or the City Clerk's office regarding final hearing dates. Finally, on behalf of the planning staff and Leesburg Planning Commission, we'd like to thank you for your participation in today's public hearing process. Mr. Chairman, we're ready for you to announce the first case.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Under old business number 1, public hearing case number LSCP 22-273, Treasurer's Trove, large-scale comprehensive plan map amendment. And I'm assuming we'll go ahead and do the other one as well. Old business number 2, we'll discuss everything and then just vote on it
Yes,
separately?
yes, sir, for the sake of making the meeting flow, if we could take the two together and then vote separately, so that it's easier to understand.
Okay. We'll also be talking about old business number 2, public hearing case number PUD 22-274, Treasurer's Trove Plan Unit Development. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For case LSCP 22-273, large-scale comp plan map amendment, and case number PUD 22-274, plan unit development zoning for Treasurer's Trove. By way of background, on the agenda today, we have these two cases for the property known as Treasure Trove. One is for the proposed future land use, and one is for the zoning. If these properties look familiar to you on the maps, it is because the Planning Commission and City Commission have both seen this project before. Last year, in July 2022, the Planning Commission reviewed this case and determined at that public hearing that it would recommend disapproval due to density, access, wetlands, traffic concerns, so forth. The project then went to the City Commission for its first reading on August 22 of 2022. In the first reading, nothing generally happens. At the second reading, this being a large scale, had to go to Tallahassee. Anything over 50 acres is considered a large scale comp plan amendment, had to go to Tallahassee, so it came back for its second City Commission reading on November 14. At that meeting, the City Commission requested that the developer revise the plan and come back to the Commission. Specifically, the City Commission requested that there be a lower density, the wetlands not be disturbed, and I believe it was Treasure Island Road be used for emergency access only. The case was then brought back to the City Commission for the second reading on February 27 with those changes made. On that date, the City Commission ordered that because the plan had been substantially changed from what this Planning Commission saw back on the August 22 date, they asked that it come back before this commission for another review. That's why it is here, because at the request of City Commission, they felt that because the plan had changed significantly from the original plan as it started, that it should come back to this commission for a re-review. With that, I would like to ask Ms. Candy Harper to present the exhibits this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. The map in front of you is a locator map. It shows you the property situated south of East Treasure Island Avenue and west of County Road 44. And this is the future land use map showing you in color what's available in the city, or what is already in the city. Oh, look at that. And Lake County future land use tells you what's out there right now. And that is rural transition, a little bit of agriculture. It looks like general commercial. Let's go to the next map, please. And then the proposed future land use is estate residential. Surrounding existing land uses have to do with residential. To the north, to the west, to the south, and across the street there's agriculture and utilities. And just off of this map, since it only covers 200 feet, is Liberty Preserve, which is also a large subdivision. And you'll see the wetlands on the map here, as well as the flood zones. And it is in Commission District 5. Should it come into the city, it will be in Commission District 5. That's all I have, Mr. Miller.
Thank you, Candy. In general, the project consists of an annexation of 55 plus, a request for annexation for 55 plus or minus acres. That goes directly to City Commission. A future land use from Lake County rural transition to City of Leesburg estate residential, and then a zoning from Lake County agriculture to City of Leesburg planned unit development. You have approximately 55.45 acres west of County Road 44 and south of East Treasure Island Avenue. 110 units are now proposed at a density of 1.98 units per acre. Previously, what you saw last summer was 155 units at a density of 2.79 units an acre. There are 50 by 120 lots and 60 by 120 lots with minimum house sizes of 1,500 and 1,700 square feet respectively. The PUD includes 35% open spaces, single-family uses only. There are design and architectural standards which are reflected in the exhibits in your packet. That also includes dark sky lighting requirements, which, as you're aware, is the shielding or directing of light inward. Gutters around all four sides of houses for any lot that's smaller than 60 feet wide. There are buffers around the property, trees required in the yards. The wetlands are protected now versus the previous where they wanted to do some mitigation on an area. There are irrigation controls to use Bermuda, Bahia, or Zoysia type grasses and Florida-friendly landscaping. There are 0.71 acres of recreation required. Mr. Chairman, as you're aware, there has been significant public opposition to the project, along with several meetings between the city staff, Lake County, the developers, and local residents at various times. The major changes to the request as put forth by the local residents include the wetland protection, changes to the access points, and a lowering of density. I believe Mr. Jerome Hennon and I want to say Tara Tedrow of Lowndes Cannard Law Firm and Mr. Hennon, the developer, are here and can provide a presentation or answer any questions that you may have. Staff is recommending approval.
Okay. Any questions of staff? Okay. And there she is.
Good evening, Tara Tedrow, Lowndes Law, 215 North Eola Drive, Orlando, Florida, here on behalf of the applicant. I have a PowerPoint presentation. I'll try not to be too repetitive from what the staff went over, but I think it's helpful just given that we're about a year since we originally submitted. Y'all saw this project at one point. We're coming back before you. I'd like to make sure everybody understands kind of how we got to where we are today and really all the changes that we've made. So the project, as you heard, 55.45 acres, has 110 lots of varying sizes on the site plan that has been submitted. That is going to be the binding site plan that's part of the PUD ordinance itself. Has a variety of lot sizes to allow multiple styles of homes. We'll show you some of those floor plans. Includes long-term preservation of wetlands on the property and improvements for local stormwater management by providing stormwater detention ponds for runoff created by the project, providing treatment for that runoff, which does not exist today, and our stormwater management system will provide compensating storage areas to accommodate flood storage capacity as necessary. So you might hear comments today or questions and concerns about what do we do with regard to drainage or flooding on this property. Now that is something that we have our experts that have been hired, that's required by your city, but we've actually gone above and beyond what some of those prerequisite requirements would even be in terms of analyzing the site from a drainage and a flooding perspective. Oftentimes you get into those details after you get through your zoning and your entitlements. That's when you really dig in to more site specifics, which is why your PUDs all say you have to comply with water management district standards. You have to go get, if necessary, Army Corps of Engineer permits. You have to comply with any county, city, state, federal mandates that might exist as it relates to the design of your project. So your PUDs already account for there being a stopgap to ensure that all of those permits and requirements will be met by an applicant. The mere fact that you don't have stamped plans from a water management district today doesn't mean you don't approve entitlements, because the entitlements precede the ability to go forth on a plan that you actually bring to those agencies. But we have had our, like I said, we've hired a team of experts that have analyzed the soils on the site, that have done our drainage and capacity analysis necessary to make the determinations that we will be able to meet all of the requirements under applicable standards that will apply to us post-entitlements today. So our request, even though the annexation is going to go straight to City Council, of course, want to bring up that annexation as part of the request that we ultimately have in this package of entitlements, as well as a comprehensive plan amendment and a rezoning to PUD, which has been supported by your professional staff. That annexation is necessary for the provision of utilities to the property by the city as the utility provider, which is why that annexation is one of the requirements that we had to have as part of our package. In terms of a summary of plan changes, This plan was submitted 5/3/22. 7/21, we had a city staff recommendation for approval. 7/21/22, Planning Commission, you all heard the case, and there was a recommendation for denial, as you heard, on a couple of different issues, which we believe have been fully satisfied and addressed in the plan we'll show you today. 8/22/22, City Commission approved a first reading. We have to submit to DEO as it's a large-scale comp plan amendment. City Commission recommended that we meet with the development team and the citizens to see about the concerns they might have. That meeting was held in August of last year. Then 9/23, we had DEO approval. 10/11, we had a community meeting. 11/8, met with Lake County to go over traffic comments and concerns that the county had submitted at that time. Keep in mind, though, that your PUDs, as is standard in the city, also provide very specifically that all access and traffic issues, if you are impacting a county road or getting a county driveway permit, have to be approved by the county. So we still have to go to get driveway permits from the county after this, even though we have had a lot of meetings and correspondence to get their sign-off on the plan and the access we're going to show you tonight. So we've gone above and beyond what is otherwise preliminarily required. On November 14th, City Commission denied the ordinance but asked for it to be reintroduced on 11/28. So on 11/22, we resubmitted a master development plan to address some of those concerns that had been brought up by the City Commission at their November hearing. On 11/28, City Commission rescheduled the case to 2/27. On 1/6 of this year, we resubmitted another master development plan with additional changes. On 1/11, we submitted responses to Lake County on traffic issues. Again, Lake County often issues a letter just saying, here are some comments about your traffic to be addressed in the future. We went ahead and addressed all of those now, rather than waiting for a post-zoning to do that. We then had a community meeting on 1/11/23 to discuss some of the concerns, and predominantly what we heard, while there were concerns about access or roadway designs, there was concerns about some of the density that had previously been on the plans, and a lot of what we had heard were about the wetlands and the impacts to the wetlands and concerns about those and what impacts they could have for drainage and flooding. On January 27th, we met with the City Planning Department to again go over the revised plans that we had submitted to see whether or not they could support those changes that were made. 1/30, we resubmitted again another master development plan, again, each time trying to be as responsive as possible to what we were hearing from the community, from the city staff, as well as from you all and City Commission along the way. On 1/31, we had a meeting with Lake County and the city about traffic and access plans and what they would approve or what they would not approve. Lake County said, see if you can shift your access south on 44, go back and get your engineers to design it. We had them go out to do the field work, make sure that we could have sufficient access, meet the spacing standards under access management code requirements, and determined that we could. So then we resubmitted on 2/6 that master development plan to the city and Lake County, showing our change in the access according to that meeting. On 2/13, Lake County approved the project connection to County Road 44. And on 2/27, the City Commission motioned for the case to come back to you all, given the magnitude of the changes that had since occurred from when you all had originally heard the case. So there's been a lot of steps along the way, and each time we've taken one of those steps, we've really been thoughtful and intentional in trying to make sure, to the greatest extent possible, we were addressing a lot of concerns that had been raised. The master development plan, back when we originally submitted, were still a PUD zoning, but 155 lots at 2.8 dwelling units an acre. The open space was 34.8%, 1 acre of rec, 2 full accesses, one on East Treasure, one on 44, and 2.61 acres of wetland impacts were shown at that time. And some of those items were deemed to be problematic as expressed, and which again led to the redesign of the plans. This might look familiar. This was the plan that you all had seen back at that time at your original Planning Commission meeting that was being submitted for approval. So on 11/22, the plan changes, and we've highlighted them on the right, but just to go through one of those, we took out at that time the impact to wetland number 2. You can see with the bubble and the number 1 next to it on the plan. That was based on both a city council and a citizen comment. We reduced the lot count from 155 to 123 lots. And something that's worth noting, and I'll touch on it in a minute, is that the requested comprehensive plan future land use designation on this property allows 4 dwelling units an acre. That is actually the lowest density you all have under your comp plan, is 4. So we are half of the lowest density allowed under your comp plan. So when it comes to changing density, the reduction in density wasn't because we weren't meeting your comp plan or we weren't meeting your code. It was truly done because we were trying to be responsive to some of the concerns that we heard, and my client was putting forth a good faith effort to say, okay, these are things that I can change, even if it doesn't financially make a lot of sense. These are things that I can change on the plan to try to be responsive to the feedback that we are getting. Wasn't your professional staff telling us to do that in their opinion? Again, it was really just based on us putting in a good faith effort to try to continue to mitigate some of those concerns. The third one was we made the second entrance onto East Treasure Island gated emergency only, that's a Knox box type entrance, to reduce and eliminate the traffic coming out on the road. That was, again, a citizen comment, city council comment. We provided right-of-way as requested by Lake County for East Treasure Island and County Road 44. So there was a comment from Lake County asking for some additional right-of-way. So we gave an additional 2.23 acres of right-of-way along the north and east side of the property that was requested by Lake County. We provided even more right-of-way as well so that East Treasure Island can have a 90-degree alignment to County Road 44. You can see that red triangle up on the map for future county improvements. Again, the county anticipates in the future that improvements might be warranted, and in the event that that was to happen, it didn't make a whole lot of sense for us in future-proofing a project to put homes on that corner, only to have the county have to use eminent domain authority and try to knock somebody out of their house. So we said, okay, we're not going to make the county pay for it. We're not going to make anyone go through eminent domain. We're actually going to take it off our plan and just do another voluntary dedication of right-of-way, give that to the county, so that when the county wants to come in, they have the land available to make those intersection improvements that they had identified might be necessary in the future. So that was an additional 0.7 acres of land to allow for that future 90-degree access onto 44. So the total additional dedication is 2.93 acres, which may not seem like a lot, but, you know, I don't own 2.93 acres, so if somebody asked me to give that up, that would seem like a lot. But it allows for future county road improvements to be made that will improve sight lines and the safety of residents. We also showed the required improvements to County Road 44, which was something else that Lake County had requested. So we put a lot more detail into this than maybe a traditional bubble plan might look like along the way, again, to be responsive to what we were hearing. We made some additional changes on January 6th. The master development plan changes then, where we revised the entrance onto County Road 44 to be a boulevard-style entrance. But you can see that entrance is more north than it is on the final plan. That was a specific comment that came out of City Council in November asking for that boulevard-style entrance, so we modified it to include that. Then on January 12th, we made additional changes. So after we had the meeting with the residents, we heard some of their additional concerns that they had expressed. They said, do not impact the wetlands. So we'd already taken off the impacts to wetland number 2. We came back and we removed all impacts to wetland number 3. So we are leaving those wetlands undisturbed, a total of 16.41 acres of protected wetlands on the site. So all of the wetland disturbances that had caused concerns previously have been completely eliminated from the plan. We reduced the lot count, again, to 110 lots based on some citizen comments and requests. We showed an active recreation area in bubble number 3, which was a request. Showed the typical interior roadway sections. The planning department had asked for that, so we provided them those cross sections. And we showed typical lot standards on the table that was provided. Made some more changes on 130 to the development plan, provided our typical landscape buffer section detail as requested by staff, provided the 25-foot landscape buffer requirement table. That was a planning department and citizen comment. And we provided some notes about the tot lot, again, planning and citizen comment. The last change is there's not a test on this afterward, but the last change is on 2/6 of this year, and the final change was moving that access point south on 44. So when we met with the county, again, one of their comments were spacing standard and some criteria that they had for access management, and so we went back, again, after doing field studies and design of the engineering of the site, moved it down, got approval from Lake County specifically via email. After that meeting, sent them over our plans, and Jeff Earhart, who is the engineering manager for the Public Works Department, said that this plan would be acceptable. So that is where we came to our final set of changes on the plan, trying to account for the reduction in density, the removal of wetland impacts, a significant dedication of additional right-of-way otherwise not required by the project, adding in the features on the plan that we had been asked of, and then changing that entrance. You might hear that some folks say, well, now we want access on East Treasure Island. I don't know why they would want access on East Treasure Island if that's the road that goes directly back to other residential areas. Both logic, common sense, and the record really from the prior hearings reflects that the requests were to have access on 44, that they wanted gated access or no access at all, only emergency on East Treasure, which is what we had in good faith, again, went back and paid our engineers to redesign the plans to do. We would have been fine having multiple, but at this point, it doesn't make sense. And talking to the county, it really doesn't make sense, because if you're going to have access on East Treasure, the only way it works is our neighbors to the north have to give up their land for right-of-way dedication in order for there to be a standard county-sized road today. So we're certainly not asking any neighbors to the north to do that. And all we're asking is that we give up all the right-of-way on our property frontage, plus more than was even asked of us, to future-proof for when the county wants to come in to design out those standards, when it's warranted to have those improvements to bring those up to county standards. That's not today. So we're not putting any cars on East Treasure Island. Our access is going out to 44 where there is sufficient capacity. We have a traffic engineer who ran his reports, submitted those to your city, submitted those to the county Lake Sumter MPO, went through the proper channels of reviewing all of our studies that had been required as part of our application to come to the conclusion that the capacity exists today. We aren't creating deficiencies by putting traffic from 110 lots out onto County Road 44. So as I mentioned previously, the zoning and the future land use, again, would go from county over to city. So to city PUD with a state residential future land use. A state residential is the lowest density future land use designation under your comp plan at 4 units an acre. We are requesting 1.98, so again, under half of what would otherwise be permitted. And that residential future land use was meant specifically, as it notes in your comp plan, for urbanized and rural areas. So it accounts for the fact that a state residential can be accommodated in both rural as well as more urbanized areas of the city. And I think this is a perfect example of the exact type of area that a state residential would go, which is why your city staff had recommended approval of that. Here are some proposed building facades that were included as well in the packet originally submitted, showing the different types of elevations for homes that might be built out there. And this, again, just goes through plan changes by the numbers, just gives you a summation of how we went from a density, decreasing the total number of units, dedicating additional right-of-way along East Treasure, along County Road 44, and at the intersection of 44 and East Treasure, removing a full access point on East Treasure. Wetland impacts were completely removed, have a boulevard entrance now, and the open space, I think, is also quite remarkable. 35% is required under your PUD at 19.28 acres. We have 50.91% open space on this property, so 28.23 acres. So a significant amount of open space. All of the wetlands are being protected. The density has been reduced. We believe we've been very responsive, again, to those comments that we've heard. And I think a good example of a community that my client has done called Riviera Bella over in DeBerry. It's about 208-acre Mediterranean community on the banks of the St. Johns River. So if there's a question as to whether or not this developer has any experience in areas with sensitive environmental issues, water bodies, wetlands, drainage, flooding, this is actually the one community that has not flooded during all of the hurricanes and 100-year storm events because of the way it was designed. And it's the same engineer that we have on that project and as on this project. You can see where it's situated. And that is a type of challenging project that I think should give you some comfort that we aren't just shooting from the hip about designing drainage, right? This is why we rely on experts. You certainly shouldn't allow me to design your drainage, right? We would rely on somebody who does this professionally. Those are the expectations. That's why we've hired the right folks to do this type of job. And again, when you're protecting all the wetlands like we are, there really isn't a whole lot to discuss in terms of impacts to those because we don't have to justify any impacts because we aren't having any in response to the comments that we heard. So our request would be approval of just the comp plan amendment, as well as the rezoning as supported by your professional staff. I know there's going to be some questions and some comments that are going to come from the residents, so I would just ask for the opportunity, if I could, at the end to come back up and respond to those. Happy to answer any questions now, too, of course.
Any questions?
No, not this time.
All right.
Okay, thank you.
We'll open it to the public. You're going to be limited to 3 minutes. Please try to not repeat your neighbor's comments because we don't want to hear the same thing over and over again. We want new stuff. So please come on up, state your name, your address.
Thank you very much. My name is Ray Hayden. We live at 35121 Dennis Road in Leesburg, and I have a video presentation. That's not it. I kid.
After the Leesburg Commission first reading for Treasure Trove on August 22nd, 2022,
I can't hear it.
Mr. Jerome Hammond and his associates in the hallway. Mr. Hammond relayed that if the community doesn't want this development, he will find another place to build. After the Leesburg Commission first reading for Treasure Trove on August 22nd, 2022,
We need to check the mic in there, see if somebody in there can do it. Mr. Chairman, we have a technical problem. We're going to ask one of our IT people to see if they can assist. Normally, it pops right up, so I do not know what's going on at this point.
Okay.
If you give us just a minute, we'll work it out.
I can guarantee you, I don't know.
Please visit your concession stand, like the drive-in movie.
So it's a good time to go to the restroom, I guess.
Yeah. I guess I can stop this.
All right.
I'm not going to this meeting. I was like, you know what, she got
they was broke that thing down.
Last time? And the city. So I'm not getting Yeah, if it was me talking, you'd hear me. It's nature.
There's no plug for that.
Really?
Yeah. Set up for that.
Just of note, for 30 years, I was a videographer in the courts in South Florida, so I feel it.
I was an audio engineer, so. That's what I was
Yeah,
gonna
what do you think
say.
about that? We got a microphone over there?
Microphone we could
He was looking for that just now.
That'd be sweet.
That's what I was.
cord not long enough.
I think the county wins it.
Ken Mason, that is over there.
Anybody want to sing?
I was just thinking about that.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, in the name of time, can we just keep going on without the video?
That's a great idea.
Good. Mike kind of introduces
I'm going to be short and sweet.
Cool.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Here we are a year later.
State your name and address.
Oh, I'm
please.
sorry. Larry Mott, 8700 East Treasure Island Avenue. I live just up the street from where the subdivision is going to be. And I am not anti-building. I'm in the industry. I would love to build every single home. I've said that before. There's a couple of mistruths in the introductory there. I'm quite certain that you folks have not warranted or did any subdivisions that had a 4-unit per acre subdivision. As she said, that they're only half, and most of them are 4. They're not. The other thing is I want to relate to is their retention areas and stuff. Are they lined? Or in the meeting that we had, they said they were going to be simply a perk system, that they would drain into the wetlands that we have right now running through our yards and across our roads. Another issue that I'll be quick is since we had this meeting, there's been at least 4 more fatalities in the immediate area. Another address needs to be, how are we ever, as you gentlemen last time said, that how would we ever widen 44 with all those houses backed up to 44? That still, to me, is still a great big unknown. Thank you for your time. I'm sorry.
Yeah, is there anybody else that's going to speak?
Hello, my name's Patricia Haberly. I'm at 7206 Treasure Island Road. I know you begin every meeting with a prayer asking you to be good stewards, and that's what I'm asking you to do, not just against Treasure Trove or for Treasure Trove, but for all of Lake County. I know that it's written, I read an article by Teresa Campbell dated February 28, 2022, under the topic of housing boom, and in it states, currently hundreds of residential new developments are in the works in this area, with the city of Leesburg having 51 named projects, all set to provide a total of 25,214 new housing units. I don't know if you guys are really looking at this total count, because each developer only wants 110 or 50 or whatever, but this is a huge growth that's happening, and it's impacting all of us. Not just the people that live on Treasure Island. It's all of Lake County, and it's important that we look at that. I looked at the average water usage per home in Florida. It states that we use 136 gallons of water per day. And if each home that's on this list only have 2 people living in it, that's going to equal 99,280 gallons of water per home each year. And if these numbers are correct, that's an additional of 24,961,860 gallons per year for all these homes. I'm asking you to consider, where's the water coming from? Our underground rivers that run between the lakes, the rivers and the lakes themselves. Leesburg bills themselves as a lakefront community. How are we going to be a lakefront community if all our water is being constantly depleted? It's time to take it takes time for the earth to filter our waters and replenish the underground systems. Look at the effects the environment's due to our human consumption. It lowers the water tables, reduces the amount of water in lakes and streams. It creates sinkholes due to the loss of subsurface waters. It dries up existing wells, increases the cost for uses, and deteriorates our quality of water. And this is from the USGS Science for a Changing World. I currently have a well. It's my water source. I don't want to be a victim of depleted water or deteriorated water. I'm asking you to search your conscience, slow down the development, not just on Treasure Trove, but all of Leesburg. This land's not going anywhere. We can take a step back, slow down, and discover exactly what impact this building is having on all of us. I'm asking you to be good stewards, not to let greed and the prospect of more money to sway you into approving these plans, because once in the work, they're not going to be slowed down or stopped. The wildlife and the environment depend on all of us to be good stewards. I'm just asking, are you willing to be a good steward? And if you are, please vote no.
That was perfect timing. Okay, anybody else? Have we rectified the?
They have not.
Can we put a computer up there and we can put it on the microphone? It doesn't have enough wire.
We have a presentation. but it's not the speaking one.
After the Leesburg Commission first reading for Treasure Trove on August 22nd, 2022, we met with Mr. Jerome Hennon and his associates in the hallway. Mr. Hennon relayed that if the community doesn't want this development, he will find another place to build. Although 8 months later, the community continues to demonstrate...
We are fully against the development due to serious traffic, safety, and flooding concerns. The Hennon Group continues to pursue this high-density proposal that is not in harmony with the surrounding community. The following contour map images illustrate why the neighbors have valid concerns about an increase in flooding once this stand of trees at the corner of East Treasure Island Avenue and County Road 44 are removed, only to be replaced by impervious concrete surfaces such as building slabs, driveways, roadways, and sidewalks. As this contour map indicates, the highest point of the Treasure Trove parcels is at the northeast corner where it peaks at 80 feet. As you move further west and south, you will note that the elevation rapidly drops to 65 feet. Finally, just south of Treasure Island Road, the elevation drops to 60 feet. While these drops in elevation are significant and will definitely direct runoff to properties to the south and west, what is more concerning is that there is nothing that can be done to control runoff once it enters the bayhead that is referenced on this map as wetlands number 3. Not only will the surrounding properties be impacted by devastating flooding, Treasure Island Road, one of only 2 access points to the Treasure Cove and Treasure Island communities, could also be rendered impassable, creating a safety concern in the event that emergency services are needed in the area or an evacuation becomes necessary. In addition to stormwater runoff, we are concerned that building on top of the underground river that acts as a conduit transferring water between Lake Eustis and Lake Griffin will displace underground water, sending it into the neighboring properties, thereby significantly increasing the flooding risk to the surrounding community. While this presentation focuses on the potential for catastrophic flooding if this keystone property is developed, as you will hear tonight, the neighbors also have serious concerns about the impact of adding more traffic onto the already deadly County Road 44 corridor. As the Treasure Trove parcels touch the El Moraldo Rural Protection Area, and the proposed development will double the population of the neighboring Treasure Cove and Treasure Island communities, we are asking Leesburg's Planning and Zoning Board to protect this unique rural community by recommending that the Leesburg City Commission, once again, deny this application.
One more current recent event that just happened. My wife and I were coming from Poe Road, turning I guess towards that property to come back home to our property, and the 44 traffic was so backed up, it was very difficult even to get out into the traffic, of course. But then the other traffic from the light at 473 was coming at such a high speed, we almost got hit, and that vehicle did go halfway off the road. There was no accident, but there was almost, pretty devastating whack in the front of our vehicle. All right, so thank you very much for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you for your patience. Anyone else to speak? Okay.
Okay, Alan Chen, 8010 Treasure Island Road. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about this. This is the plan that we had at the time. It shows laser. I'm losing my time. Here, I have. Okay. I'll just do this. We're worried, of course, about the runoff, and as mentioned by Ray, there are some issues with how this is all set up. We have a drainage pond up here. Even the developer admitted at one of the community meetings that there will be runoff into the wetlands. So how much will these wetlands increase in size as they've been increasing over the years? And this was already described, but here's the property in question. This is a 20-foot drop here. So in order to mitigate any of this runoff into the wetlands, there has to be a substantial amount of fill brought in to change the contour. But you have what I overlaid here, this tiny little retention pond, and it doesn't really address how all of this high-density area is going to prevent runoff. And then if we take a look at some of the runoff coefficients, you can see that right now it's a pine forest there. The pine forest tends to have a very soft material, very absorbent, it percolates. So the runoff coefficient, which is really a percentage of runoff, is only about 10% for a forest. But when we talk about 1/8 acre, which is very similar to what we have here, the impervious residential goes up to almost 50% with housing and roof and driveways and roads. So now the runoff coefficient goes up to about 4x what it was before. So where's all that water, again, going to go? This was an example of a downpour. I think that's in another presentation, so I'll skip it. But one of the proposals we have was actually a continuous retention pond to capture everything. It'll still percolate down and into the wetlands, but at least it won't be a direct runoff. Some of the issues is that we have this very fast, very heavy rainfall. And when that happens, it actually doesn't have a chance to percolate, it just runs. So this is the issue when we have these 1 inch per hour rainfalls. And then what happens when those ponds fill up? The other thing is that the runoff will carry pesticides, poisons, fertilizers, weed killers, sediments into the wetlands, which is something we don't have today. So the only way to prevent that is to actually build some sort of a continuous retention. This is something I think is also going to be spoken to later. He mentioned this roadway up here. It's presumptuous that they expect the neighbors to give up their land for his greed. So I just wanted to point that out. It's actually written in here, additional land dedication be required from the properties north. So finally, in conclusion, I talked about the insufficient safeguards for runoff, especially with the downpours, a water runoff with some detrimental effects due to chemicals, debris, pollutants into the wetlands. Is going to change the ecology, we know that, and possible flooding of the adjacent neighbors. And what happens, is there any recourse for these neighbors who get flooded? I think Hennon actually mentioned at one of the meetings that they can sue the HOA, and that's not an appropriate response. So we want to know who's going to be responsible when these neighbors are flooded due to this, this building. And the last point I want to make is, they talk about low density here, but half the land is unusable. So the density is not effectively over 55 acres. That's a definition that's not quite accurate. So you should really consider, out of usable acreage, what's the true density. And these are 1/8, 1/7 acre plots, very, very small. And the facade that they showed of the house, you can touch the next house, I'm sure, when those are actually built. It's not that nice open green area. So, thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Yeah, do we have another presentation?
And when you're all done, I'm going to let the applicant come back up, and that way she can address a lot of the questions and comments you had.
Oh, yeah, the clicker? Yeah, that would help. Yes. Goes right. Hello, I am Michael Chen. I live at 8010 Treasure Island Road. So I'm going to briefly discuss things about the wetlands. Pardon me. So just to go a quick overview, parcel 1 here on the map is 12 wooded acres, and it also includes the highest point, 80-foot elevation in the corner, in the top right corner on the map. Number 2 has a home on it, 2 acres. Number 3 is 40 acres of primarily wetland, with the lowest point in the bottom left at 65 feet. So, important thing to keep in mind, as some of the others have already gone briefly over, is that many of the neighboring properties marked numerically on the map here are within the wetland zone, and this is taken from the Lake County Interactive Map. So you can see that anything that impacts the wetlands on the Treasure Trove property there is likely to impact each of those dozen neighbors just below and around it. Concern here also with their latest or more recent map is that we are asking if there's an issue here where the you can see around the small pond there, the isolated pond, that they do have a little bit of development around it. And we're wondering if that is going to affect how the pond and the wetlands connect there. And will this whole development be clear-cut? It's an issue that construction like this and developments like this, with a lot of wetland and silt and sediment, that it can flow right down that slope there, from the 80 to the 65 feet elevation differences. This is an aerial photo. This is taken from the northwestern side, facing 44 up on the top there, and that's the corner with the Treasure. Pardon me. The East Treasure Island Avenue there. So this was taken in February 6th, and you can see it's a little hard to see on the display there, but there's a lot of standing water within those spots there, marked appropriately. That was after a little bit of rainfall. So it's a very wet place still, very, very wet, and we have concerns about how they'll be infringed even with the latest concept.
Okay. Can you wrap it up?
Yeah, sorry. This was the video my father mentioned previously. So this is me driving down 44, busy, scary road, and this is one of the Sierra 44 Land Invest construction site here on the right. So that road got closed off shortly after my drive here. And this is on a road. So imagine this coming down from Treasure Trove into the neighboring properties on a much steeper incline. And our questions are, oops, my apologies. I do not know how to use this thing. We want to know, what was the date of the latest wetland study for Treasure Trove? What are the results from the study that we have not seen? Does it include all the wetland boundaries for all the the neighboring parcels? Why was this not shared with the neighbors? And why can't this development be future-proofed against known potential issues, such as there's a little bit of a 100-year floodplain overlap from the current concept, where some of the homes and part of the property is actually within the 100-year flood plan,
Okay.
and et cetera. And that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thanks.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My humble assistant. Thank you.
Let's get his money's worth today.
My name is Lorraine Davey. I reside at 8940 East Treasure Island Avenue. I'm also known as the teacher in the rubber boots. There's a reason for that. I want to give your attention, or if you can please give me your attention. This is a map of the flood zone. Oh, thank you, Vanna. To 2002. And if you'll note the area of the flood zone, this is a flood zone from 2012. We have not been provided with the updated flood zone. As you can easily see, I'm a visual learner, the flood zone has significantly increased. And where's all that water going? That's my property right there. And these are other neighbors. Something's happening right now. Something has happened even before this development's going in.
Don't get too close to the microphone. It's feeding back.
Okay, sorry.
That's right.
So we ask that you deny this development based on what you've seen. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi there, Gary Custer, 8909 East Treasure Island Avenue. I do not have a video, but I have handouts. Thank you, sir.
Do you have to have one for their attorney as well?
Huh?
Do you happen to have an extra one for the attorney?
I can give her mine when I'm done.
Okay.
I kept one.
Yeah. Got to have a cheat sheet.
I gave you one. Notice the first page is one of your ordinances. It mentions leapfrog development. It mentions taking care of the environment, aesthetically doing the right thing, protecting against urban sprawl. That's your ordinance. I don't think you're living up to it. The second page, all the white spots on the second page are places you've annexed. That looks like leapfrog development to me. Moving on to the third page, this was a 2003 study of 44. It gives the dates that different sections were supposed to be completed. By 2022, it was supposed to be done. They never even started. It still needs to be done. The third page shows my design for an entrance right off of the corner, comes into that little parcel, the little orange parcel that is the driveway, well, that they're giving to the county. But all these neighbors on the north side, they were never spoken to. So I went and spoke to each one individually, and they each signed off on this. So that was what I did. But the driveway would make the intersection safer, would make it a better situation. This is the last page is a little bit of an up-close picture of that intersection on another drawing that was made. But I think it's important that you know the 44 is exactly the same road it was last time when you turned it down. It hasn't changed. In fact, it's got worse. 100 homes here, 100 homes over there. The one up on top of the hill has 265. each one of those has 2 cars, it just creates more and more and more traffic. Ray was talking about being backed up. They were backed up so far down 44 because of that accident at the bridge, you couldn't see the end, and they just couldn't get through. Both ways was that way. So I appreciate if you'd vote no on it, just like you did before. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to go old school like Ben Gary and do a handout. Thank you. This is just 2 pages. Thank you so much. The first page, you're welcome. The first page is Louise Chen from the very talented Chen family. She put together a, I can't give out pictures, I don't have any, so she put together, it's okay. You're good?
Just make sure that it's, just make sure that it's,
Oh,
state your name and address, please.
my name is Lisa Hayden, and I live at 35121 Dennis Road, Leesburg. We're just a little bit past that lump there around the wetland. This rendition was done keeping in mind what Alan Chen had gone over as far as additional retention ponds. And I've numbered it, so as I'm speaking, you can just follow along to see the areas of this map that I'm talking about. This one doesn't have numbers on for the audience. So currently, the rural transition land use allows 1 dwelling unit per 5 acres. So approximately 11 dwelling units can be built on these 3 treasure trove parcels today. The neighbor's proposal allows for more than 5 times what is permitted today, and that's pretty much what we're showing you, what we think we could live with in this area. But even at these 60, sorry about the typo, there's only 60 homes, even at the 60 homes, we still think that there's going to be a lot of additional traffic. It's deadly out there. It truly is. It's bad. So we think that it makes sense for the developer to be responsible for making the East Treasure Island Avenue and County Road 44 intersection a much safer 90 degrees, as shown in the top corner of the drawing here. We also think that the 100-foot natural landscape buffer around the perimeter would allow not only for the future expansion of County Road 44, but also a smoother transition from the surrounding rural community, as there's nothing less than 5 acres, adjacent to this property. The 100-foot natural landscape buffer around the wetlands, along with larger retention ponds, will alleviate the flooding. And this is a watershed property, and it acts as a bayhead between, I think it's Lake Eustis and Lake Griffin. This is a very unique parcel. It's not just land. There's a lot going on in this as far as the water and the flow of the water. Louise added a walking trail, bike trail, picnic areas that would make great selling points for people who want to experience a blended rural lifestyle, and they could enjoy it right within their own community. And the single large recreation area is also a great place for people to congregate and meet their neighbors, since there aren't really a lot of front porches offered. This is the most important part. As you're sitting here today as the planning board, and as the first major development to directly impact the Treasure Cove and Treasure Island communities, this is really a keystone. This will set the pace for what's the standard for that inevitable future development in this area. The Planning and Zoning Board has the opportunity to get it right by recommending denial and asking the applicant to submit a plan that is more harmonious in the surrounding community. I thank you so much for your time. I have to say, I can only say the highest compliments to the city staff. They've been amazing. I also want to say the same for the developer and their staff, because they've spent time with me explaining things that I didn't understand on their dime, and I do appreciate that. We still think that we could just do a little bit better. Finally, I just have this petition, and I'm just going to give you each a copy. It's got like 230-something signatures on it, and it does talk about it talks about the developments, the last page of all the ones that have been approved.
Do you have one for the attorney?
Oh, yeah, well, I can.
If not, I can get, you
Yes,
you
yeah,
give her that.
yes, definitely.
Give her this too.
And there you go.
Oh, one more.
Oh. Wow.
No, for the development.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm okay. Just a minute.
I'm okay. We can share. It's fine.
Oh, thank you so much. Well, I appreciate it. Thank you for your patience.
Thank you. Is there anybody else to speak?
Anything new to add?
Yeah.
Good afternoon. My name is Sue Wakefield. I live at 9125 East Treasure Island Avenue. And I have lived on my property, which is on East Treasure Island, right there at the top of your piece of paper. I've lived there 53 years. When I first lived there, the property that is now wooded was cow pasture. It had been a watermelon pasture before that. It was planted in the pine forest quite a while back. It's all been very nice, very good for the life of the wetlands and the life of the animals there. I do know that a friend of mine wanted me to speak today about gopher tortoises, never high on any construction site's list. She's been going around over there with a camera taking pictures and has found well over a dozen nice big tortoise holes. I know I have 5 in my horse pasture. And she's concerned about what are you going to do with all them? You pay somebody some money, and suddenly the gophers are gone. Don't know where, don't know how, don't know when, but money exchanged hands. And I know that money's a really good factor for things. I do hope that you take into mind the other things there besides just the wetlands. They are most important because they sustain everything else that's there. When we had a community meeting, they had showed us this map at that time. And I said, listen, if you just took yourself and cut it off right there, the neighbors would probably be pretty good with it. And so then the next thing they showed up with was this plan. They do a circle around the sinkhole, as if, okay, there's your sinkhole, you got it. But it's not. They've still got a bunch of stuff out beside it. It's not no impact. You can't do this with no impact on the wetlands. Just doesn't happen that way, not in Florida, not with hurricanes, not with anything. So I hope you give some thought to that and make a decision based on what needs to be there as compared to what can be there. People have made a great many changes since they originated the plan, and they have tried to be thoughtful in many ways and kind of wandered on over everybody's footsteps in other ways. But I think a little bit more effort on their part would make us much, much happier. Just a little bit more tweaking. Thank you.
Thank you. Is that it? Sir, were you sworn in at the beginning of the meeting?
No, I just got here just a little bit
Okay,
ago.
that's what I thought.
Yeah.
Could you swear him in for me?
Yes, ma'am. Okay, my name is Melvin Blue. I live at 9335 East Treasure Island Avenue. My property is the third one in off of 44. So I see a lot of that traffic going up and down 44 and the congestion that it has. Not only that, I have sat there as high as 15 to 20 minutes to get out onto 44 to go either way. And we've got a development across the street from that. We've got another big one down the way going in. And the more these homes you put in, it's going to increase an impact on the global warming that we are so concerned about to nowadays. We need the property to stay as is so that it helps with clarification of the air quality that we have. The trees and stuff is what purifies our air. The more of the lumber and the trees we take out, the worse our air quality is going to be. And any development, because I've worked in the construction field for several years, any development always impacts any wetlands around it. And I don't care if you tell me I'm going to put a retention pond here and a retention pond here, it's still going to affect the natural wetlands. And we need those wetlands to keep the quality of our water and our life sustained as it should be. Thank you.
Thank you. Is that it? All right.
Tara Tedrow again for the record. I want to address a couple of the concerns that we heard. One of them has to do with traffic and deadly traffic on County Road 44. So County Road 44, which I assume everybody here in the room knows, is a county road, so the city doesn't have jurisdiction over it. One of the reasons we had to get county approval for the redesign of our access plans. You're hearing about some concerns on East Treasure in that intersection. Taking all of the cars from our project off of East Treasure entirely should hopefully be a redesign that makes the neighbors happy, because we're not putting any traffic at that intersection. In fact, what we're doing is dedicating acreage necessary for the county to do its job in public works and be able to make those roads standard in the future when they have enough right-of-way that has to be dedicated by our neighbors to the north. So we've given all of the access, or the right-of-way and the access and the easements that would be necessary for the improvements to be made that the county would have the responsibility to take control over without putting one new car from our project onto East Treasure Island. So if anybody thinks there's a problem on East Treasure in that intersection, that is certainly not a problem that is exacerbated at all by the way that we have redesigned this project. When it comes to County Road 44, again, one of the reasons that you don't take my word for traffic or a neighbor's word for traffic is that we have to have expert studies and engineers. And that's not just because we feel like it's a good thing to do. We do as well. But it's because your city requires it as part of an application process. So if any of our neighbors came and they wanted to go do a development, or if they wanted to build a new house on their property, they would have to go through these same types of permitting requirements that we go through to talk about impacts to wetlands, to look at soil and erosion control, to be able to make sure you have proper drainage and proper flooding. Keep in mind, these are not just things you guys impose on developers, because anybody in this room could be a developer the minute they go to submit for a permit with your city to try to get something approved. So we've gone through all the proper channels of hiring those experts. And it's not just your code that says experts are important. I mean, it's very clear that when y'all make decisions that have to do with a rezoning, your standard is competent and substantial evidence, which is why we submit civil engineers, traffic engineers, reports by environmentalists to back up what we are saying, rather than conjecture, questions or thoughts or speculation from those who live in the area. So it is no disrespect to the opinions of those who come to express them at these hearings, but really your decision making has to be based on the data and the facts that are provided through expert testimony. The only expert testimony we have comes from your planning staff, and it has come in the form of the studies that have been submitted, as well as the plans that have been designed by expert engineers that we have engaged to work on this project for well over a year to try to bring it to a place that will hopefully make everybody happy. I'm under no delusions that we can make everybody happy in the room, but I think, as you can see, there's been a lot of effort in redesigning these plans to really try to get there. I don't show up to hearings and give chalkboards out and blank pieces of paper and ask neighbors to tell me what they want us to design. We have to do that based on your standards too. So a lot of our design, including access management, comes from code from the county and code from the city, which is why it ultimately ends up looking the way it does, because we have to look at things like upland buffer requirements by the Water Management District, 25 feet from a wetland. We have to look at things like 50-foot building setbacks from from the Water Management District standards for any of your wetlands, all of which are accounted for on the plans and have to be accounted for when we get to our construction level planning. In terms of County Road 44, according to the Lake County Sheriff's Office, which ran a report from October 2021 to March 2023, there have been 2 reported accidents within a mile of this site. And again, I could have predicted there could be a little bit of an outcry when I read that, but I'm just telling you, we kept hearing the same thing, so we reached out to the sheriffs and said, what is happening on County Road 44 that we should know about? And what we got back were 2 reported accidents that happened in February, both in February of this year. So I'm not sure if they just haven't reported them yet, but again, the statement that this is the deadliest roadway or the deadliest intersection is just simply not backed up by what the sheriff's data is telling us about County Road 44. In addition, when you're talking about some of these wetland issues, so there's a lot of concerns, as you heard tonight, that treasure trove wetlands are shared with other neighbors and that we need to have some protections. Keep in mind that the wetland maps that you saw today from the neighbors, those are GIS maps, right? We had an environmental expert go out and actually flag the property, not to flag it again before we can go and get to construction level drawings, because those are outdated maps and they're general in nature. Your city would not allow me to submit a plan with a map that came online from the county. They wouldn't allow it because those are not exact maps, which is why we went out and in September of 21 did our studies, flagged the property, and are going to have to go back and flag it again when we get past the zoning portion of tonight's hearing, and hopefully with a recommendation for approval. So that GIS map is not a true representation of wetland limits. Those are general limits for mapping purposes, and the district would not allow this type of map to define wetlands for permitting. So we couldn't bring it to the district to get a permit. We certainly wouldn't pass muster with your city, again, which is why we paid an expert to go out there, flag and delineate those wetlands for us, which then get fact-checked by the Water Management District before they'll ever issue us a permit as well. And so we did have those wetland limits actually surveyed. They've been shown on our master development plan the whole time. They've been as part of our public records submittal package. So those have been out for anybody who wanted to review those wetland delineations. And our correct wetland lines are as shown on the development plan according to what was flagged in the field. In terms of runoff and the diversion of runoff into stormwater ponds, for developed sites, surface runoff is diverted as follows. Lot areas are graded to our internal right-of-ways. The right-of-ways then drain from the curbing to our stormwater collection system through inlets and pipes. The stormwater collection system directs the runoff to our stormwater ponds for treatment and storage. So it's not a correct statement to say that we're just pumping everything into a wetland. I mean, they are specifically designed drainage systems. So while things might sheet flow off 44 and Treasure Island today into wetlands, that is going to be changed by having a stormwater management and drainage system in place that then collects it, diverts it, and treats it before it then gets drained anywhere else. In addition, discharge to wetlands can only happen after stormwater ponds have received collected runoff from the development to be treated. So we have to have treatment before it goes in. That is not the condition as it exists today. Code requires that the rate of discharge from stormwater ponds have to match or be below pre-development standards, meaning once we develop, we legally are not allowed to discharge off our site and flood our neighbors' properties. It has to be, you look at pre and post discharge levels. Again, these are all things you wouldn't send me into a room to try to figure out. You have to send our civil engineers and our experts who design these types of stormwater drainage systems to control for flooding, to control for drainage issues, to then get permitted, again, by state, county, and city level experts who review all of the permits that we submit. They've asked how much will the wetlands or flood zones increase in size with this development. Again, we've flagged our on-site wetlands. The limits have been shown. We have proposed no wetland impacts for any on-site wetlands. We have our 25-foot upland buffer. We also have our 50-foot setback as required by code. So the existing wetlands are not going to be changing in size. We're not modifying any of the wetlands or impacting them. And that was a specific request that was made to remove all impacts to those wetlands. And then in terms of the flood zones, again, based on the established base flood zone elevation that we have on the National Flood Hazard Mapping and the St. John River Water Management District, they're not going to permit any project that's going to impact the flood stage unless we can compensate for that volume. So I'm getting very technical here only because I'm reciting a lot of what my engineer told me before today. I feel like I'm a junior engineer at this point. But everything that they were telling me was, Terry, we're getting into details that come at construction level approvals. and we've accounted for all of it on our PUD plan, and we've already designed around it because it got brought up by the residents, so we wanted to have these answers to be sure we would not have problems in the future, even though customarily we would have waited 8 months from now to start digging into these details, but we did it today because the residents had raised it as concerns, and therefore we wanted to be able to answer that adequately. So again, the base flood elevation will not be raised on the property, as shown through the drainage analysis and the flooding and stormwater design that our engineers have done. There's also some concerns about, whether what we're going to do in terms of water runoff. So you heard some coefficient charts set up about water runoff. But again, the way that we have designed our plans is going to have a treatment in place for the drainage. We are not going to be causing the problems that you heard were questioned as to whether they would be problems. And if there were ever problems in the future, those are things that would then put us in violation of our state permits that we would be receiving from the Water Management District. So you would have to go back and rectify any of those problems. So there are controls in place, and this is not just specific to us. It is for every development that's going to happen in your city. Moreover, there were some questions about steps that would be taken to prevent flooding after clear cutting. Before the site is cleared, wetlands and upper buffer limits will be staked by our surveyor. The contractor has to install all erosion control measures to ensure that erosion is controlled during the early stages of construction. So these are additional code requirements that have to be complied with. You don't have to take it on the good faith word of any developer in your city. Your staff has accounted for this, not only in your ordinances, but also these are accounted for as well as necessary steps we have to take after the PUD in order to get permits approved for any development on this property. So that was a lot of technical analysis. I think what the important thing is I can sincerely appreciate that neighbors have concerns about any project that's going to come in around their development. My client has gone to great lengths to really try to mitigate those concerns. Right? We have redesigned the plan numerous times to address those types of concerns, to mitigate the impacts of what they had specifically told us were issues, short of just scrapping the project and leaving. Now, when you hear that this is a high-density development, I'd like to be very clear that the lowest density allowed under your comp plan is 4 dwelling units an acre. Definitionally, we can't be high density. You have categories for that. This is not high density development. 2 dwelling units an acre. You heard in Lake County, rural transition is 1 to 5. That's incorrect. In Lake County, rural transition allows 1 to 1 and other types of cluster development if you provide 50% open space. So we're in the city, we're not in the county, so we're complying with city requirements in your city's code, not the county's code, because you have jurisdiction post-annexation, again, the annexation required by virtue of us needing your utilities. So when we come into the city, there is literally no other residential future land use category you could assign us that is lower than what we are asking for. And we're asking for half of the lowest category you have under your comprehensive plan. So in terms of figuring out what do you assign a property that has to be annexed into your city, I can't think of any other type of future land use designation that is even legally feasible for a residential development at the density we are asking for, because it quite frankly doesn't exist. It only exists higher than what we are asking for, and we are binding ourselves to something lower. Someone else is going to come in and ask for 4 dwelling units to the acre because that's what your comp plan allows, regardless of whether anybody's done it next to us, like somebody said. That's what your comprehensive plan sets out. So unless and until you change it for something else, 4 dwelling units an acre is your lowest density. We have cut that in half to 1.9 dwelling units an acre. We have dramatically redesigned our project. We have done this, again, in a good faith effort to mitigate the residents' concerns, and we're hopeful that we'll get a recommendation of approval based on all of the changes that have taken into consideration the feedback we received from the Planning Commission, as well as City Council, as well as the residents, as well as Lake County, as well as your planning staff. And you do have a planning staff's recommendation for approval, which is, in and of itself, competent and substantial evidence to warrant an approval of the project tonight. So we would appreciate that recommendation be in line with your professional staff for recommendation for the PUD rezoning as well as our comprehensive plan designation. And if you have any questions, I'm more than happy to answer them, and I appreciate everybody's patience in listening tonight.
Thank you. Thank you. Any questions of the applicant from staff or from commission?
Yes, I have a couple questions. Sure. One question that the neighbor asked about were the gopher tortoises. Mm-hmm. So I do know that they're not endangered; they're threatened. Mm-hmm. and I understand that the protection for them has been removed on a state level, not our level. But are there any concessions being made for the gopher tortoises that are there?
So the state hasn't removed any of their from under the Fish and Wildlife Services and the permitting requirements through DEP for anything that is environmentally impactful on the property.
Mm-hmm.
We have to go back through before we have construction level plans approved. We've already done the environmental studies. So yeah, there are some gopher tortoises out there. The way that you mitigate for any gopher tortoises, and mitigate's not a euphemism for kill. Mitigate means you relocate them to permanent protected areas. And the reason that you don't just let developers do an environmental study right now and then use that for the next 3 years is because more could come on site between now and then. So we have to go back out and rerun the environmental study to see whether that species or any other threatened, endangered, or protected species are on the property, and you mitigate for it at that time if legally permitted to do so. Because if there's something that you can't mitigate for, like a bald eagle's nest, that no-build zone, you can't do anything about that, right? But gopher tortoises, you pay to relocate those, again, to permanent protection areas and at a very high price tag to take each tortoise and have them specifically relocated by your team of environmental experts. And that process is also overseen by the state. So we would have to submit for permits if there are gopher tortoises at that time to have them taken to a permanent sanctuary.
Okay. Another question I have for you. Slowly, would you tell us about the entrances?
Sure.
And I'm not saying that you aren't being straight, but a more layman's term, as plain as you can get, so I can get a full understanding as well. The entrance, the current entrance where you're having it now. Yes. I do understand, and like you said before, the county roadway is not a responsibility of this current commission. We cannot dictate what happens to that actual road, but we do have the responsibility of making sure that you are providing the county what they need as far as entrance, leeway, like you said, and would like to know where exactly where you're going to have it from the road now, just as plain as you can get.
I appreciate you asking for that because there were a lot of details that came. So to make it clear where we ultimately ended up on our plan. So the access that you see that goes out onto East Treasure Island up to the north.
Is there a pointer?
Yeah, that would. Did I lose at some point? I thought there was a clicker around here. Oh, here we go. All right, is there? Oh, it doesn't show up on the screen. That's perfect. Oh, does it?
It's a little bit.
This one does. This one, I got the strong one. There we go. Okay. So this access right here was originally a full access point onto East Treasure. That was requested to be removed during a city council hearing, and then there were comments, as you can hear, about concerns about traffic on East Treasure. That has been changed to only being an emergency access point. So fire, police personnel, if necessary, that's an emergency access point only. One of the comments we received was additional right-of-way needs to be dedicated along our frontage here on East Treasure. So we have dedicated the additional, and again, it's a couple acres total of additional right-of-way that we've given, both along the frontage of East Treasure Island, as well as along the frontage of 44. Our PUD plan, which I might not have mentioned, requires that we also install sidewalks on East Treasure Island, which don't exist today, so we would have sidewalks there as well, already built into our plan in the right-of-way that we were originally agreeing to. But then we gave extra right-of-way so that when the county comes in later, they will be able to make a standard roadway width, compensating with the right-of-way we've provided on our side of the road. So this, no cars will be coming out from residential traffic, extra right-of-way here. This red triangle, an additional amount of right-of-way dedicated.
Where is that red triangle, please?
This red right here.
Yeah, no, but I'm saying, what is that intersect?
So, sorry, yep, so that's East Treasure, and this is 44.
Yeah. Okay.
So at this intersection, the corner here, there will be no development in the red, because that's going to be given to Lake County.
And how much land is that again?
0.79 acres.
Okay.
And so the county can do whatever they want with it. So if they want to come in and they want to say signals are warranted later and we got to put improvements and have turn lanes coming out, that is what's going to allow that to happen, because that is the necessary amount of right-of-way that the county had asked for in terms of dedication for future improvements. So we've dedicated that corner clip of our property to the county, assuming the project gets approved. That dedication would happen. Then, again, we've dedicated along the frontage here on 44. So if 44 ever needs to be widened in the future, you're not going and knocking out people's backyards and everything else. We've already accounted for that. And there would be sidewalks along 44. The access was originally up here onto 44, right about there. We met with the county, and the county asked, can you move that access more south to get further away from the current intersection today? Here's our access management standards. We always knew we'd have to go back to the county and get them to permit it one way or another, regardless of what we show. Just because we showed it on this plan doesn't mean overrides county authority.
Right.
But the residents said, we want to know that you actually can get your access approved, because we don't believe you're going to be able to. So we went to the county, and the county said, we're not going to approve your access here, but we will approve it here. So we've moved it, and there's a boulevard-style entrance feature here. So you'll have lanes coming in with landscaped median in the middle and lanes separately coming out for the full access onto 44. So that's a county authority to oversee that access, and the county has given us the preliminary approval to place the access there on 44.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
Is that it?
I would like to know, just briefly, for the sake of time, can you just tell me what are the lot size and the size of the units?
They're in the PUD.
So in terms of lot sizes, and the PUD plan is somewhat of a vision test when it is up there, because the font is about 2. So we have multiple.
50s and 60s?
Yeah. I didn't know if you wanted counts on those. No. Oh, okay. Yeah, 50 by 110, 50 by 120, 60 by 120.
Okay. And the size of the houses?
1,500 on the smaller lots minimum, and 1,700 on the larger lots.
Is that it? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, I'm going to close this to the public, and I guess we'll wait for John to get back.
Mr. Chairman, would it be possible? We need to go ahead and read the recommendations, which we normally do earlier, and just
Yeah, I was wondering why
we're running through that, and I missed the part on my notes too, so I apologize for that.
That's okay.
I'd like to read both sets of recommendations. The first being April 20, 2023 for Project Treasure Trove, City of Leesburg Large-Scale Comprehensive Plan, LSCP, case number LSCP 22273. Planning and Zoning Division recommends approval of this request for the following reasons. One, the project meets the requirements of Chapter 163.3184 Florida statutes for large-scale comprehensive plan amendments. Two, the proposed request, as conditioned in City of Leesburg case number PUD 22-274, is compatible with the adjacent future land use designations of City of Leesburg as state residential and with Lake County designations of urban, low-density, rural, and rural transition. Three, the proposed request, as conditioned in City of Leesburg case number PUD 22-274, is compatible with the current surrounding zoning districts of City of Leesburg PUD and with Lake County District CP, which is planned commercial, CFD, which is community facilities, and A, agriculture. Four, the proposed future land use designation for the site is consistent with the city's growth management plan, future land use element goal 1, objective 1.6. The action requested is vote to approve the large-scale comprehensive plan designation from Lake County Rural Transition to City of Leesburg as state residential and forward the recommendation to the City Commission for consideration. Moving to the case number PUD 22274, Treasure Trove rezoning from Lake County A agriculture to City of Leesburg PUD. Planning and Zoning Division recommends approval of the request for the following reasons. One, the proposed request as conditioned in City of Leesburg case number PUD 22274 is compatible with the current surrounding zoning districts of City of Leesburg PUD, Plan Unit Development, and with Lake County District CP, Planned Commercial, CFD, Community Facilities, and A, Agriculture. Two, the proposed request as conditioned in City of Leesburg case number PUD 22274 is compatible with the adjacent future land use designations of City of Leesburg Estate Residential and with Lake County designations of regional commercial, urban low density, rural transition, and rural. 3, the proposed future land use designation for the site is consistent with the city's growth management plan, future land use element, Goal 1, Objective 1.6. The action requested is vote to approve the rezoning from Lake County A Agriculture to City of Leesburg PUD Plan Unit Development and forward this recommendation to the City Commission for their consideration. With that, staff has no further comments.
Okay.
Thank you.
John, have you read the recommendations? Because he just read over the recommendations. I want to make sure you're clear on.
Yeah.
Okay. 'Cause you got to hear everything to be able to vote in my court. Okay. Anything else? Any other discussion?
No, sir.
All right. I'll open the floor for.
Go ahead. You open the floor for discussion, now?
Yeah.
Okay. The density, in reality, I know they compute it by total acreage, but in reality, the highlands is what I like to consider as density. So it's really 4 units per acre of the actual land area that's buildable. I drove out there 2 days ago. I explored. Grew up in the area, as many of you know, but I drove down East Treasure Island Road and Treasure Island Road and another road or two. And, you know, this is whole country, Florida. It's still there. I value that. I do understand we have growth, and we have an awful lot that's been approved on that area out there. And I think that I'm not going to be in favor of this density that we have right now.
Okay. All right.
And the traffic, of course, is a major concern. It's a concern in every development we consider. It's always a traffic issue.
And, you know, I agree with Mr. O'Kelly, especially the traffic. And I know we have nothing to do with no roads in the city or outside the city. But I just can't agree with this, like, you know, like it was last year when it came forward.
Okay. Anything else?
I just have a question. Probably the city attorney and Dan might be the one, and probably shouldn't have asked it here, but I am. In the future, this property and surrounding properties like that, is there zoning considerations for this? I know they've been done in other communities where the buildable lot has to be certain acreage, or do you get what I'm trying to hit it?
I don't.
I think, I believe it was Sunnyside when we had that, when they had that. You know, I think they have some kind of consideration where the south side of the Sunnyside road that Sleepy Hollow is at, that those lots have to be any homes that's built there with certain density.
Well, that's what the PUD's for, is to set the density.
The PUD does define that. It does give the 3 types of lots: a 50 by 110, 50 by 120, and 60 by 120. And as the way it's currently designed, the larger lots go around the outside, and the smaller lots are on the interior. And that's the way we do it on any subdivision, this one or any of the others. So all those standards are placed into the PUD. And for example, in respect to wetlands and flood zones, those are also covered in the PUD as being required to meet all of the engineering standards and requirements of the city and of the state, St. John's, DOT, every state agency that gets involved in this kind of thing. Site access goes to the county because that's appropriate for them on the entrances. But the PUD does go over those types of standards. And basically, if the city does have control, then it writes up what those controls will be. And if it does not have control, then it sends it to the appropriate agency, which would be required anyway. But what the city is doing is acknowledging that agency's authority and saying we will back that agency. So if Lake County says you can't have an entrance here or there, the city's going to back that up. But if they say you can, then because it's their roadway and they are the agency that's in charge of reviewing those standards against their own, what we call the Green Book, or their own standards, like FDOT is what they call a Green Book for the standards, then the city's going to back that up. We don't have authority. We just have to send them to them for that requirement to meet that.
Okay, so the residents for future land use, the zoning would have to change on that for them to be able to avoid projects such as this that are.
This project right now, the land itself still is within Lake County. So it would, in order to do the proposal here, it would have to come into the county through the annexation, zoning, and comp plan process. That's the only way this project could happen, unless the Lake County Commission were willing to do a rezoning for this type of use.
So our job basically is to make sure that all the requirements under the PUD have been met and or exceeded.
Basically, you're looking at the PUD and saying, is this what the members of this commission agree or wish to recommend to the city commission as a positive development or a negative development?
Right. The PUD is the plan for that development. So is the commission here satisfied with that particular plan for this property or not?
Okay. It's its own zoning district, so to speak.
The PUD provides some flexibility in terms of how you can develop the property a little bit differently than a straight zoning classification.
Okay, thank you for your clarification.
Yes.
Just one point. It is in the county presently zoned agricultural. It's not in the city yet.
Right. That's what we.
Right now, the county zoning will allow one dwelling for every 5 acres. So I'm not sure what the comprehensive plan is. Is that a county comprehensive plan or a city comprehensive plan for this property?
Right now, it's county.
What is their comprehensive plan density?
Rural transition, and I believe that is 1 to 5.
One
unit per 5 acres.
That's okay. I know that agricultural zoning is also requiring, and that's what this is zoned. One dwelling unit on a 5-acre parcel.
Okay.
Not 4 units.
On an acre. Yeah.
On 1 acre. Per every acre.
Okay. Is there anything?
On 1 acre, yeah.
Or
excuse me. Thank goodness for attorneys. Apparently, she looked up the rural transition. I had it backwards. Rural transition is 1 to 1.
1 to 1.
With 50% open space. So if you have 1 acre and you maintain 50% open space, then you can get 1 unit.
okay.
Okay. Fine.
All right. Anything else? All right. I'll open the floor for motion.
Mr. Chair, for case number LSCP 22-273, I make a motion to deny.
Okay, there's been a motion to deny. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, there's a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Raise your right hand.
Aye.
All opposed? Aye. Okay. The nays have it, or the ayes have it, I guess.
The
Oh,
next
that's
case-
right. I'm sorry.
That's called home.
Oh, man. I'm not with it today. Okay. Forgot there's 2. Okay, for case PUD 22274, do I have a motion for that one?
I'd like to make a motion to deny.
Okay, we have motion to deny. Is there a second?
I'll second again.
Okay, we got a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Raise your right hand.
Aye.
All opposed? Aye. All right. Thank you, and I want to compliment the neighbors, how good a job you guys did. I mean, it was really, really organized, and it makes it easier on us, you know.
No, that did not make it easy.
We didn't get the, tomatoes thrown at us or anything like that, so it was pretty nice. But you guys did a great job.
Just, Mr. Chairman, just as a reminder, this is a recommendation.
I do have one question. I live in rural Leesburg. Who's my representative? I live just off of you said this is District 5.
That's Reisman.
Who's my representative?
Alan Wiseman.
Alan Reisman.
Well,
Is it Alan?
Mr. Custer lives in Lake County.
Oh, that's the county.
yeah.
You're not in the city.
It's rural Leesburg.
But it's outside the city limits, but it has a Leesburg mailing address.
If you
So
want to
it
call
would be-
staff tomorrow, I'd appreciate it, because we have 3 more cases
We're
to do.
still in session.
Hey, please take it outside. We're trying to do business here. Thank you.
Thank you all again.
Yep. I knew we couldn't get away from that. Something I said. All right, we got new business number 1, public hearing case SSCP 23102, Polk Gorman Properties Small Scale Comprehensive Plan Amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This property consists of an annexation of .97 plus or minus acres, a future land use amendment from Lake County Urban High Density to City of Leesburg Industrial. The zoning request is from Lake County RP, which is residential professional, to City of Leesburg M1, so it's a straight rezoning. So sum it up very quickly, it's an annexation, small-scale comp plan, and rezoning, which would allow for a more appropriate list of uses. And I believe Ms. Melissa Metters will be presenting the exhibits this evening.
Hi, good evening.
Do we want to flow right into the next one too, or?
Yeah, I was going to say, Mr. Chairman, you could.
I'm going to introduce the other one as
Yeah,
well.
you could introduce 1 and 2
Yeah.
together, discuss them together, and vote separately. Yes, sir.
All right, that's what I'm going to do. I had it ready to read. Case number SSCP 23102. Is that the right one?
23102 and 23103, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, 23103. Let me get that. Hang on, I'm sorry. Yeah, RZ 23102, Polk Gorman Properties rezoning. Okay, sorry about that.
I'll postpone this till next month.
Now you know what it's like to be at the end of the agenda. Every case I have is at the end of the agenda of the city.
Yeah, we have one after this.
I know.
Okay, anyway, it was a it's almost 1 acre, it's very close. We're going from urban high density and requesting to go from Lake County urban high density to City of Leesburg industrial, and on the zoning from Lake County residential professional to City of Leesburg M1, which is industrial. It will allow for more appropriate uses, and it is staff's understanding this is an expansion of the existing businesses in the area. Melissa, if you would like to do.
Thank you,
Melissa
Mr.
Metters from the staff, please.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. As you can see from the aerial, this subject property is south of Griffin Road and east of Snowburger Avenue. The future land use map shows the subject property is surrounded by industrial to the south, east, and west, and medium residential to the north across Griffin Road. Lake County future land use shows the urban high density, which is west of Snowburger Avenue. The proposed future land use map shows the subject property as industrial. The surrounding land uses map shows the vacant industrial to the east and south, along with vacant commercial, warehouse, and residential to the west, pasture, nursery, and warehouse to the north. The flooded wetland shows that there aren't any flooded wetlands on the property. The subject property for the community redevelopment area is in Carver Heights. and the commission district is 1. And that's all I have, Mr. Miller.
Mr. Chairman, this was sent out to all the different city departments. There were no comments from city staff. No comments from the advertisement or posted sign. We did receive one surrounding property owner letter in favor of the request. I'd like to go ahead and read the recommendations into the record.
Okay.
For the William L. Polk Family Trust, Polk Gorman Properties, SSCP 23102, the Planning and Zoning Division is recommending approval of the request for the following reasons. One is the project meets the requirements of Chapter 163.3187 Florida statutes for comprehensive plan amendments. Two, the proposed request for a small-scale comp plan amendment is compatible with the adjacent future land use designations of Lake County urban high-density and City of Leesburg industrial and medium-density residential. Three, the proposed request under case number RZ 23103 is compatible with the current surrounding zoning districts of Lake County R7, which is mixed residential, RP, which is residential professional, and City of Leesburg, M1 industrial, and PUD planned unit development. Four, the proposed future land use designation for the site is consistent with the city's growth management plan, future land use element goal 1, objective 1.6, and the action requested is vote to approve staff's recommendation to change the future land use of the subject property from Lake County urban high density to City of Leesburg industrial, and forward this recommendation to the City Commission for consideration. For case number RZ 23103, William L. Polk Family Trust for Polk Gorman Properties, the Planning and Zoning Division is recommending approval of this request for the following reasons. One, the proposed request for an M1 industrial zoning is compatible with the current surrounding zoning districts of Lake County R7 mixed residential and RP, which is residential professional, and City of Leesburg M1 industrial. Two, the proposed future land use designation of City of Leesburg industrial is compatible with the adjacent properties having future land use designations of medium density residential and industrial, and with properties in Lake County having future land use designation of urban high density. Three, the site is located near existing city utilities which are available at Griffin Road. And four, the proposed zoning designation for the site is consistent with the city's growth management plan, future land use element, goal 1, objective 1.6. The action requested is vote to approve the proposed rezoning from Lake County RP to City of Leesburg M1 industrial, and forward this recommendation to the City Commission for their consideration. Mr. Bill Polk is here, the owner of the property, to represent. If there are any questions, staff has no further comments and is recommending approval, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. Any questions of staff?
I have a question.
Okay.
In reading this, it said that it's going to be for a plumbing business.
That's correct.
And reading further, the surrounding existing land use to the west, it says residential.
No, that's not correct.
Show me, where does that say that?
Page 25.
Of the...
That might be written.
He owns the property to the west.
I own the property to the west. I got 13,000 square foot of plumbing supply there right now. So if you look at the...
It's west of Snowburger is the residential property.
Yeah.
The surrounding uses, pardon me, Mr. Polk.
Yeah, go ahead.
It's surrounded by industrial. It's west of Snowburger is where you run into the residential. So this is essentially filling in a spot that needs to be industrial as it sits. It's been high density or something in Lake County, and I don't know why, but it's been that way for many years. Yeah. The residential is crossing. If you go, thank you, Diane, if you go up here, that's where the residential is on those vertical tabs or markers there. Thank you, Diane. That's the residential. So we probably needed to explain it better in our...
Oh, okay.
I see it over here. They're showing you.
If you can pull up the color-coded one, it shows it a little better.
All right, I understand that. I just read that to the left, to the west, was residential, and then I was just concerned, was there going to be a fence there between the residential and the existing property for the plumbing? Because I know what a plumbing yard looks like. A lot of pipe.
Well, it's a wholesale plumbing outlet. It's not a plumbing, they don't do plumbing. It's an outlet.
Right, so you've got to store all that pipe and all, but if you have the property next to it, I have no problem with that. I just thought it was residential, and...
To the west is my property. To the east is a mountain of a road milling.
Okay, that's the only question I had.
Okay.
Thank you.
right. Do you have anything you want to add that staff didn't cover?
Well, I mean, this business has been in Leesburg for 45 years. They were on Canal Street for 20-something years, and I've had them out there since 9/11. So they've been out there for 20 years, and it's the largest plumbing outlet in the United States of America.
In fact, I was on this commission when you brought that other one in.
Yeah.
I remember when you brought it here.
So
We'll take a look.
It's an enclave that never got put in. It was a residential housing deal a long time ago that I bought, paid too much for it.
Okay, thank you.
It's actually gonna get cleaned up, to be honest with you. It's kind of looking pretty ratty right now.
All right, thank you.
And it'll probably bring in one more employee for this company. That's about it, really.
Okay. Any other questions for Mr. Polk?
No, sir.
All right. We'll close for discussion and render a decision.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion on public hearing case SSCP 23102. Recommend approval.
All right.
I second that, sir.
Okay, motion's been made to approve it and second. Is there any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Raise your right hand. Aye. All opposed? Thank you.
And just one more thing that, thank God I'm not on the city commission or anything anymore, because I remember the stuff that Sheldon just went through. There
Bill,
really is
we
a
get-
God, if you don't believe it. There really is a God. Y'all
We get $25 for this. And I refuse it.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Okay, we got one more.
One more.
Public hearing case RZ 23-103.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, public hearing case SSCP 23103. I recommend approval.
I second.
Any discussion?
Excuse me.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Thank you. Okay, now I got control of the meeting again. All right. Okay, new business number 3, public hearing case number CUP 23-110, can't read it. Citrus Boulevard Telecommunication Tower, conditional use permit.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The final case on tonight's agenda is a conditional use permit for a new 150-foot monopole communications tower. The location is on the southeast corner, if I got my directions right, basically the most southern, one of the southernmost points of the Walmart property, located, as you can see, on US 27441. If you look down there along the southern part of Walmart, you have MLK Boulevard, and it's right there where it says location of proposed tower, behind the existing building. The applicant is SBA Corporation out of Boca Raton. The engineer for the project is Kimley Horn, and Ms. Max Van Allen will be presenting the exhibits this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. So for the aerial that we saw previously, the subject property is located west of Citrus Boulevard, or 27441, and then north of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard. It's kind of on that corner. And then going back to the proposed tower location here, you can see it's on that southern tip. And we have site plans to follow later that show precisely where it will be located. The parcel is zoned C3, highway commercial.
If I may interrupt,
Yes, sir.
if everyone's not aware, if you'll look at that map and see how the city limits runs, I was not here when that happened. It would not have happened if I had been here.
I remember when it did happen.
But the city limits runs through Walmart.
Really? I have to see that.
And it's go ahead, Max. I didn't mean to interrupt, but just so you know,
No
you can
problem.
shop in the county and the city so you can support the area.
Oh, it was a mess when things happened because they didn't know who had to report to it. Sheriffs or the police.
Absolutely. So the aerial to the north on this zoning map should be Fruitland Parks, but our zoning to the south on the southern portion, half of that parcel, is C3 highway commercial, surrounded by C3 to the southeast and west, P public to the west, and M1 industrial and PUD to the south. The future land use designation for the property is general commercial, surrounded by general commercial to the southeast and west, institutional to the south and east, high-density residential to the northwest, and industrial and conservation to the south. Surrounding uses include the Walmart store, commercial to the east and south, shopping center to the south, vacant and utility to the west, as well as place of worship to the west. There is no flood zone present on this property, and there is a small amount of water excavated wetland showing just adjacent to Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard. This property is in the Carver Heights CRA for Community Development Area, Redevelopment Area, and is in Commission District 1. Signs were posted on April 7th, first looking west into the subject property on Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard, and looking northeast along Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard, looking east across the same road, and looking southwest along the same road. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Max. There were no comments in regard to the department reviews that were sent out to all the city departments. We received no public comments and from the advertisement, SPO letters, or the posted sign. Under the recommendation for this project, April 20, 2023, petitioner of SBA Towers 10 LLC, Citrus Boulevard Telecommunication Tower, KCUP 23-110. The Planning and Zoning Division is recommending approval of the request for the following reasons. One, the request meets the criteria set forth in Section 25-141 Conditional Uses of the City of Leesburg Code of Ordinances and Section 25-802 Zoning for Tower and Antenna Sites of the City of Leesburg Code of Ordinances for the granting of a conditional use permit to allow for construction of a monopole telecommunications tower. Two, subject to the conditions listed below, the proposed conditional use does not appear to create a detrimental impact on the surrounding properties. With the following conditions, one, the conditional use permit is granted to the permittee to allow one 150-foot monopole telecommunications tower with supplemental compound and equipment. Two, the conditional use permit is subject to all City of Leesburg code requirements, including zoning and building code regulations as amended. Three, the transfer of ownership or lease of any of or all of the property described in these conditions shall include in the transfer or lease agreement a provision that the purchaser or lessee is made good and aware of the conditions and agreements stated herein. Any change or deviation from the conditions shown herein may be revised through procedures as described in the City of Leesburg Code of Ordinances as amended. Four, the granting of this conditional use permit does not exempt the applicant from other applicable regulations of the City of Leesburg and other governmental entities, agencies, as well as assessment of the impact fees necessary for completion of a project. And five, violation of the conditions herein may result in this permit becoming null and void. Six, the conditional use permit must be properly executed by the applicant and filed within the Planning and Zoning Division within 90 days, or it will become null and void. And finally, the action requested is vote to approve the request for a conditional use permit for the subject property to allow 150-foot monopole telecommunications tower with supplemental compound and equipment. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Staff is recommending approval.
I've got a quick question.
Yes, sir.
Two quick questions. One is, did you hear anything from the church?
No, sir.
Okay. Number two is it taking away any parking spots?
No, sir.
Okay.
Let me check. It's actually on, is there a site plan there? It's a little bit difficult to see. There we go. Do you have a pointer, Max, that you could point out where the pole actually is going? It's a little bit hard to see, but if I get my bearings right. Diane, is there a twist on this thing? Here it is. Yes, thank you. Thank you, Diane. Right here, this is Walmart. This is the road behind Walmart. This is a grassy, dare I say, grassy knoll. So
I was waiting for that.
So it's going right here, so it's not taking any parking spaces. It'll be a fenced compound, small area, like they do all over.
How tall is the tower?
150.
I thought they had to have a fall area for a tower like that.
Not within our code.
You know what I'm saying? Okay.
Any other questions, staff?
I have
But
a
it-
question. Whoops, sorry.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, if it fell 150 feet, what exactly would it fall on?
Everything between the base and 150 feet, I guess. It's actually pushed away from the roadway. It's a little bit tough to see, but let me get it.
Yeah, I pulled it up
It's a
on
little
right
bit
there.
hard to see, but it falls this way, it hits here. Falls this way, it goes here and doesn't hit anything. Falls here, it goes into Walmart. I think that's the sports goods back here.
Yeah, okay, so it's not
Fishing area.
impacting any residential or anything.
No.
But with the modern engineering designs and things and the way the poles are tied down, it's extremely unlikely for anything like that to happen. I can't speak to that.
Is that something you'd be able to address, how the pole might fall if there were any kind of issue with the collapse there?
Sure.
Thank you, sir.
Good evening. I'm Tony Dawson. I'm with Kimley Horn, and I'm here representing SBA. So these towers are designed per the local wind codes. So this one here, I believe, is in the 100 and...
I think it's 140.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. And we can provide, once we go into permitting too, we'll be providing tower drawings and all that kind of stuff, shows wind speeds. But most of these towers, and the setbacks, like he mentioned, our tower setbacks is, except for the actual Walmart itself, we're meeting all the setbacks to the building from the property lines. So if it does fall in any direction, it would stay on our property. And yes, we are probably closer than the 150 foot to the Walmart, but it is on our residence or on our property. So typically, when it damages, it really hurricane wind speeds. It doesn't. There isn't really a specific way that it fails. When it is designed, if it exceeds the design speed, a hurricane comes through like that, it could be bent at a certain location. It could be at the foundation. Usually when they do design these, if there is a requirement to have a fall zone radius, they can do that. And that just limits it to falling within a certain distance, and it actually will break. The failing point would be at that point. But like he mentioned, this code, there is no really fall zone radius as long as it stays within basically the 100% of the tower height. So usually if it's going to fail, it's designed for all the local wind codes. If it fails at a hurricane, there's probably not a whole lot anyway, but usually I've been doing this 20-some years, and I don't know too many that actually have failed.
We get 140-mile-an-hour winds there, Walmart's not going to be there.
It's always kind of the tricky way to answer it that way.
At least all the stuff out in the parking lot.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks.
No problem.
Did you still have a question?
Just what I've been reading. I pre-read this stuff when you send it to me, and I make notes.
Sure.
I haven't been to the site. It says the Walmart is vacant. Is it?
No.
Okay, well, I'm just
Vacant
questioning.
land beside Walmart.
Because I was going to wonder what's going to happen with the building with this. And the associated compound and equipment, is that just a lot of stuff, or what is it?
Sure. So the kind of high-level design of this is basically the antennas are on the actual tower themselves, right? And at the bottom, you basically have a concrete pad and the equipment cabinets that basically runs the antennas. So in this case, they'll have a couple cabinets on the ground that's all going to be inside of the chain link fence area.
Okay.
And that'll be for the carrier.
It's not going to be like storage.
No. It's usually like this case. I think there's two 2 foot by 2 foot, 6 foot tall cabinets, and it's almost like if you open it up, it's almost like walking into like an IT facility, like a switch room or something like that. It's got the so it's very just equipment room in there. Open it up. That's where all the equipment that runs the antennas and provides the coverage.
Thank you.
No problem.
Thanks. Any other questions? Is there anything else you wanted to add?
No, sir. If anybody has questions, I'm good.
Okay.
Thank you.
We'll close to the public and render a decision.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the CUP 23-110.
All right.
I'll second that.
Got a motion and a second. Any discussion?
No, sir.
All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed?
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to thank everyone for their patience tonight, and to Tony for sitting through the whole meeting, and Mr. Polk as well. If I may, sir, I would like to introduce everyone tonight to Ms. Rosalind Peoples-Johnson, who is the newest member. She's an alternate on the Planning Commission, and moving forward from today, we're going to be alternating Ken and Ms. Peoples back and forth as the alternate as they're needed, as they are needed. Just want to announce you're both welcome to come to every single meeting, and we seat you as, after a few minutes if somebody's not here. But normally we'll know who's going to be here, and we'll be able to let you know ahead of time. So I want to thank you both for being here on the commission and for coming here tonight. And again, the way we work the alternates is one person, one meeting, one person the next as it's needed. So with that, thank you, sir.
Thank you. Anything else need to be brought up?
6:40.
Those houses there, they're not going to